everyone. I'm Mike Coutermarsh. Coutermarsh, I know that's kind of hard. That's my Twitter. That's 4 C's. I don't know why, that's weird. So I'm a software engineer down the street at gazelle.com. I switched to Vim like 9 months ago. I used to do like Sublime. So I'm by no means an expert. I think probably half the people here are better at Vim than I am. But I think since I'm so close to the learning experience, I'm sort of an expert at learning. So I still remember what it was like. So if you're new to Vim, I can sort of talk you through what it's going to be like if you're planning to start learning. So this talk, I'm going to sort of set our goal from the beginning is I want to get you to the point where you're good enough to use Vim at work. So number one thing I hear from people when we're talking about learning Vim, they're always like, I'm too busy, I have too much contract work, I need to stay productive. I can't be like spending time learning something new when like Sublime gets the job done now or whatever you use. So my goal with this is sort of teach you the process to go from like maybe you've never even opened Vim, or maybe you like opened it and then struggled to find out how to close it. And that's it, you gave up. So, or maybe you've like tried to learn a couple times, struggled, failed, and went back to Sublime. I want to sort of make that transition from that stage to being just good enough that you can use it on a real project, like at work, that you're making money for. Because then I find once you get to that point, you're using it every day, and you're like learning new things every day, and you're getting better, and then you get really productive. So this is what we always hear, right? Learning Vim is hard. I find that funny because most of us are programmers, and I think like learning programming is hard. Learning Vim is easy compared to that, but it's different than what we're used to, so that's why it's hard. So to start out, in response to learning Vim is hard, I have some advice to you from Tom. And this is actually one of my favorite quotes. I apply this to life a lot. Sometimes you gotta work a little so you can ball a lot. I think the payoff of learning Vim is huge. But yes, it's a little work. Yes, it's painful and frustrating, and you'll sort of be upset and want to quit. But I think if you put in a little work, the payoff is so big that it's worth it. So while you're learning and you sort of feel that pain, I think it's important to remember the payoff will be worth it. So number one thing, sort of starting out at the beginning, and the one thing I want you to remember from this talk, if you forget the rest, this is the one most important thing. And this is I think the one lesson I learned from transitioning and learning Vim is that there's huge payoff in investing in your tools. I think before this, I've been programming for probably like 10 years. I know I look like I'm 15, but it was a long time. And I think I went through all these different text editors, and I'd use like Sublime, and I'd find it was always good enough. Like you didn't really learn more because it did the job. And with Vim, you're really forced to invest in thinking about your process. So if coding is your career, I think there's huge benefit in everything you learn today. It keeps paying off every day that you keep using it. So that's the biggest thing. If you learn Vim, it's a huge investment in you today, and if you're coding for the rest of your career, every day after that. So I have a list of things that I wish I knew before I started. So before you start, you should know. So the number one thing to know when you're starting to learn Vim is that Vim is like its own world. Whatever you're using now, which is probably like Sublime, TextMate, God forbid like Eclipse, I don't know. Those are like one planet. And then if Vim were another planet, it's an entirely different planet. So you can't approach it like you do any other editor you used before. And that's why people say it's hard, because they go in with the mindset that they're going to be able to use it like Sublime or TextMate or whatever else. So just know as you're going into it, it's hard because it's different. But because it's different, it's better. Number two, and I know this goes against my number one goal of the whole talk, which was to use it at work, but I don't recommend starting at work. You just shouldn't start at work. I don't recommend using it when you need to be productive. It's frustrating. And I think sort of takes the fun out of it. Nothing's worse than like having a production issue when you don't know how to copy and paste yet. Like that's terrible. and that's sort of the easiest way you end up quitting. So the way I started, and sort of I recommend for you, is like you play around it at night, maybe during lunch break, weekends, and then sort of once you have that basic stuff, like I can copy and paste now, you can get to the point where you can use it at work. But right away, I wouldn't start at work. So number 3, you are going to be breaking up with your mouse. I don't care how cool your mouse is, you are done with it. There's no more like touching your mouse. We already know we have enough mice in Boston already, so we don't need to be touching them anymore. So the thing with Vim about that you no longer need the mouse is, I think the biggest benefit I found is you lose that sort of context switch where like you're typing and then you're moving over here to use the mouse. And it's all day. Like if you sort of imagine yourself in the third person doing that, it's like, that's crazy, isn't it? Like, why would you do this? This seems much more efficient. Another thing I noticed was before I was using Vim, I'd sort of like get pain here. Like, I'm sure everyone's, we do this, you sort of get pain in your right hand. And I think that's from doing this. Like, that seems to make sense to me. And that's gone now, because I'm no longer touching the mouse. I'm not a doctor, but I think that's right. I don't know. So 4, I call these the but can-its, and I wanted to put this because I spend a lot of time with developers, and I know everyone's always like, but can it do this? Like, everyone probably has a question in their head right now. If you're preparing to switch, you're like, there's these 3 things that I absolutely must have, and I will not switch unless I can do them. And then whenever I talk about Vim, I usually get that list from people, and the answer to everything is yes. So yes, I can do it. There's probably still 3 of you here who are like, there's 3 things I know. I'm gonna get him. And sort of when you're learning, you're maybe, it's sort of in the back of your mind, like, it better be able to do this or I'm in trouble. Just sort of suppress those feelings. It can do it. Don't worry about it. You can go forward, you can learn, and you'll find a way to do what your old text editor did, and much better. So number 5, there's always a better way. So as you're learning, I promise there's gonna be these little moments where you're like frustrated, or there's something that feels really slow and clunky. And just while you're learning, I want you to keep this in mind, that there's always a better way to do everything. I found you can type the weirdest things into Google. We already knew that. But the weirdest things into Google with Vim, and someone else has written about this somewhere. So you want to do some strange thing and it's hard. You type it in and someone wrote about it on their blog, and there you go. There's your solution. And then 6, this is the last one, is you should try to learn something every week. I found personally, I think it was maybe after 2 or 3 weeks, I was like, I can do everything I used to be able to do in Sublime. And then I stopped learning. And I was okay. And then I thought about it, and then I found sort of every week, if I focused on learning something new about Vim, I was able to get super productive, and that adds up really quickly. So it's important to remember that Vim isn't something that you learn and you're just done with it. It's a process always. So you learn the basics, but keep adding on every week. So real quick, let's review so you don't forget. Number 1, it's different, right? 2, you shouldn't do it at work. 3, you're breaking up with your mouse. 4, but can it? Yes, it can. 5, there's always a better way. And 6, learn something new every week. So next, let's talk about hacking your keyboard. So this isn't just a suggestion. You need to do this. That's my opinion. You need to do this. Maybe someone's weird and doesn't do this, but you need to remap your caps lock key to escape. So why do you do this? Well, you're not using your mouse anymore, and Vim has modes, and you're constantly switching through these modes, and you use the escape key to go back to normal mode. And it's up here, and maybe I just have small hands or something, but the caps lock key is much easier. So you can use, if you're using OS X, there's this app, it's called Seal. They just renamed it. It used to be called something else. I have the link to it here. And Seal will let you remap your caps lock key to escape. I also found there's a side effect of this. It generally just makes you a better person on the internet. Like if you're on Hacker News or something, you can no longer scream at people, or Twitter, or like whatever you guys use. So second thing for hacking your keyboard, I recommend speeding up your key repeat. I found that when you get fully dependent on using your keyboard for navigation, you sort of notice how slow key repeat actually is, which that's when you hold down a single key, how quickly it keeps firing. So this actually makes Vim much quicker. So this app is from the same company for OS X that it's called Carabiner. The settings I used that worked for me were 400 milliseconds and 25 milliseconds. So I found that much easier. So when I see people sort of starting out with Vim, like some of my coworkers in the office, and they're moving sort of slowly with that at first, this seems to help a lot. So we finally made it to basics. Let's start some basics on Vim. Hopefully this isn't too remedial for everyone. So first thing, and I talked about this before, why is learning Vim so hard? It's because there's modes, and your other text editors don't have modes. So it's this having this context in your head constantly of what mode you're in and how the keys have changed. So when you're in a different context, the commands mean different things. So just quick overview. These are 3 of the modes. So normal, insert, visual. Normal mode, this is what replaces your mouse. This is what you hit the escape key to get to. Insert, I mean, that seems obvious. Inserting text and changing text. And then last, visual. This is for sort of just selecting text. And there's actually variants on visual mode, but it's when you're just starting out, it's really not that important to you yet. So more basics, let's talk about commands. So I think everyone who started Vim or learned Vim has this little story about like the first thing they found that like blew their mind, or like the coolest feature, and they're like, yes, I'm gonna have to use this. So for mine, the fan just turned on. And I worked really hard on making this video for you. It's actually not that cool, but I spent so much time on it, I have to show it. So there's this thing in Vim called change inside. So this was the first time I saw this thing, and I was just like, oh my God. So you use this all the time in programming. This is like a Ruby method, and there's some arguments, like message recipient. And when you're doing development all the time, you'll want to just remove the text that's within something else and then start typing again. So what this is going to do, it's going to remove what's inside of the parentheses, and then I'll start typing to replace it. Hope this video works. Oh, not bad, right? How lame is that? That got me so excited. Yeah. So really what I want to get into, I'm not going to teach you a bunch of commands because that's boring. You don't want to listen to me talk about that. But what I want you to remember is that you don't have to memorize this stuff. So these are the keys I hit to do that. C, I, paren. Which the thing I was intimidated by when I first started learning Vim is I thought that these people were smarter than me and like memorized all these crazy key combinations, which that would be nuts. So let's break this down, and I think I'll make it a little more easy to understand. So it starts out with C, which is change. And so that's easy to associate, C, change. You can remember that. It's a lot easier than remembering all 3. I, inside, parens, C, change inside parens. So I find that you'll be saying this inside your head rather than memorizing it. So you're not memorizing characters, you're memorizing what you want to do, which is much easier to do. So let's do another one. What's this do? Change inside quotes. See, this is easy. What's this one? Yes, and then now I have a curveball. I really changed this one up. What could D? Delete. See? Delete inside parens. So my advice to you is say them in your head. I don't recommend saying them out loud. It's weird. Yeah, so say them in your head. Don't say them out loud. Yes, you'll have more friends if you say them in your head. And then my advice to you also is there's this cheat sheet. So get the cheat sheet. There's the link. By the way, these slides will be online, so you can actually click the link if you're interested. And that has all the commands for you. So you'll see C is on there, and D, you already know them. So next, let's transition into configuring Vim. So Vim out of the box is actually sort of uncool, which is weird, right? You have to configure it to be cool. So I'd like to introduce you to your new best friend, which is this file, .vimrc. If you're not familiar with it, this is the file that you use to configure Vim. It's known as a dot file, literally because of the dot. So it's a dot file. And then also, if you haven't seen this sort of notation before, the tilde or that squiggly line, that just means your home directory. So if you're looking for where this file is, that's where it is. It's like user's home, mic, or that's where it lives. So another thing to keep note of, since the dot file, if you open it up in Finder or something, it's hidden, but it's still there, I promise. So this is your new best friend. And what do we do with our new best friends? We put them into version control. Our new best friends deserve to be in version control. I recommend that you check it into Git, you check it into GitHub, and then you can share it with people. So this gives you another benefit. You're able to track your changes. You will probably mess up your Vim config a lot. So if you track it in Git, you'll see what exactly you did to ruin your configuration. So this is very useful going back. Then another benefit is every time you go to a new machine, if this thing's already on Git, you can just git clone, and there it is. And then everything you need for your editor is there. If you do a lot of remote work on like different servers, you bring up a DigitalOcean box or something, do the clone, and there you are. So, and with that, for your vimrc, I recommend that you steal your friend's dot files. So you should steal your friend's vimrc when you start out. It's hard when you start to know what you want and what to configure. So what I did when I started is I found someone in my office that used Vim, and their setup looked cool, so I took his. And from there, I sort of figured it out and learned. So if you don't have a friend, I am a good friend. Mine are on the internet, and you can steal them. There's also some weird stuff in my dot files. Please don't judge too much. And then I also recommend thoughtbots, which they were very helpful for me as well when I started. So you can steal either. All right, so what you actually came here tonight for is where to start learning. The process of learning, like actually learning Vim, is pretty simple. So to start, this is what you do. You're going to open up a terminal and you're going to type this, vimtutor, that command. It should already be on your machine. And what this is it's just going to bring up a text document, and there's just paragraphs, and each paragraph teaches you about things to do in Vim. So it'll teach you how to move, insert text, sort of all the basic movements, like all of the stuff that you need to know. And it takes about 25 minutes to complete. I never completed the whole thing at once. Like I usually feel pressure to do it all at once, like maybe 5 minutes here or there. Just like, you know, you're having a coffee or beer or whatever, you're just playing with vimtutor, and you just learn stuff. And as you keep doing it, do it several times, it starts to get into your fingers and this stuff makes sense. So if you find that vimtutor is not working for you, there's actually this game that is like vimtutor called VIM Adventures. So you can learn Vim while playing a game. So that's fun, right? I think the key thing to remember with both of these is it's going to be like a little hard and awkward at first. I think you're going to feel like lost and it's going to feel clunky. I promise, like, it's not that you're not smart, so this is totally normal. You're going to like get through this phase pretty quickly. So after vimtutor, you want to go into watching screencasts. So watching other people use Vim. This is probably where I learned the most. After you get the basic movements, this is where you learn the advanced stuff. So like how to actually use it in the real world, on real projects. So if you're a Rails developer, guess what? There's screencasts out there that are specific for Rails developers, so you can see how other Rails developers use Vim. So two of my favorites, vimcast.org, that's a great one. And then Upcase, which I guess is thoughtbot Prime, but they changed their name. I saw when I went to the link last night. I used thoughtbot Prime or Upcase when I started, and it's actually good. I'm not just recommending it because they paid for the pizza, but the screencast will help a lot. So let's talk about, I'm just going to go through a few plugins that you're going to want to do real work. So I found sort of the biggest barrier for me from transitioning from like vimtutor expert to actually doing my job in Vim was navigating my code base and sort of searching through it and going through all the files. So here are just a few things that'll help you out. So first up is Control P, which if you use Sublime already, you have this. You probably use this all the time. And that's fuzzy file search. So you start typing a file name and you can get to it very quickly. Super useful. Next, nerd tree. This is just sort of like your file tree. You can set up some shortcuts, which is what I did. So if I have a file open, I can just hit a command and it will open the tree to where that file is. So then I can sort of key around and look at other files that are also in that folder. Very useful. AG for Vim. I went through probably like 3 or 4 different plugins for searching. I decided this was the best one. It's the fastest one. This lets you search through your projects. AG, that's the best one, so remember that. You'll see other ones, but I found AG to be the best. And then just so you're aware, if you're a Rails developer, which is like the best, right, is there's one for Rails Vim. There's also, if you do TDD with RSpec, there's vimrc, which is very useful. So before we wrap up, we're almost there. I have one last review for you. These things you have got to remember. You're going to change your caps lock to escape. You're going to do vimtutor. Watch screencasts. Make sure you steal from your friends. And remember that learning Vim is a process. So you do not ever just learn Vim and stop learning Vim. You're always going to be learning Vim. And then sort of my final advice before I'm done is that after you've gone through this sort of learning process, you need to pick a date and just commit to it. I remember one Monday morning I came into work and I said to all my coworkers, this week I'm only using Vim, and that sort of created a social pressure where they make fun of me enough anyways. I don't need to give them something else to make fun of me for. So that week I was using Vim. I hid Sublime from my doc. Anytime I couldn't do something in Vim, I looked it up for that week. And every day it got easier, and then by the end of the week I was golden. I didn't have to switch back ever again. So that's all I have. Thank you. There's my Twitter, 4Cs, my email. I always love to help, so if you ever want anything from me, feel free to reach out. Thanks.